sometimes I show up with genius and I can solve almost any problem very rapidly. At least I felt like I could back then. And other times I'll sit at my computer and just stare at the computer screen in light level panic for hours, accomplishing very little to nothing. Same person, same motivation, same drive, same desires. And one situation shows up amazingly, brilliantly. Another situation shows up terribly.
Welcome back to the Dataliction Podcast, where we learn from leaders whose experience and faith shape how they grow their companies on purpose. In this episode, Travis and I talk with Kevin Bailey, the co-founder and CEO of Dreamfuel. Pro athletes get a mental performance coach. Special forces operators get one too, yet founders walk into one of the highest stakes environments there is with no training for the mind at all. We get into regulating your nervous system, finding the state where you have real agency, and showing up at your very best come rain or shine. And now let's jump into the conversation.
If you were going to be a pro athlete, they'd give you somebody like us. If you were going to be a special forces operator, they would give you somebody like us. I believe founding a company is one of the highest stakes environments you can put yourself in psychologically. Your life's not on the line, but your marriage, your relationship with your kids, your relationship with your friends, your financial future. So many things are on the line that it can be incredibly psychologically challenging. So I would say your ability to learn how to regulate your nervous system and show up consistently at your very best, come rain, sun, or shine, is not only critical to you having a decent quality of life during the run, but also maximizing your possibility of success in that role.
How do you help founders realize that moment?
Normally, I will basically tell them what I just told you. I'll say, talk to them about professional sports, talk to them about special forces, talk to them about all the other people, celebrities that use these type of tools, why they use them. And then normally I'll say, would you like to experience what it's like to work with a mental performance coach? Normally, their curiosity will be piqued enough to do a demo with us. And then we send them on an amazing session where I think they go in thinking it's going to be like therapy or something, but they come out like having done maybe some deep breath work with a visualization about the vision for their business. They come out fired up as they've ever been fired up before and realize they would love to have that energy and that enthusiasm and that confidence and discipline and drive and focus and vitality on the regular. And then we have the hard conversation about what it takes to actually learn how to reprogram the way you show up at a physiological, emotional, psychological level.
Kevin, when you look back at your own story, I can tell you don't just know this in your brain, but I can tell you've practiced this and experienced it, let alone shared this with others. Can you think of a moment in your own story or even a story of others you've helped? But I would love to hear from your own story where you felt that exact tension you're now helping other people lead through, where your headspace is getting pulled in two different directions. Do you have a clear moment where you can go back and say, this was my aha moment and this is why I'm so passionate about this?
Yeah, I do. I think I still have the paper somewhere. So when I was founding my very first startup, it was a high growth company in Indianapolis. We were Inc. 58, rapidly grew past 10 million in ARR. And I remember one day I sat down out of Exact Target's office. I think we were going in for a meeting with Chris Baggett or something. And I just sort of like recognized, it's like, sometimes I show up with genius and I can solve almost any problem very rapidly. At least I felt like I could back then. And other times I'll sit at my computer and just stare at the computer screen in light level panic for hours, accomplishing very little to nothing. Same person, same motivation, same drive, same desires. And one situation shows up amazingly, brilliantly. Another situation shows up terribly. And it's almost like weather patterns. There was no real, I could not discern why sometimes I was so good and why sometimes I performed so lousy. And that was, so I wrote down on a piece of paper, I put a little chart, and I wrote all the states of awareness I would be in randomly as a founder. And I would write, like how productive they were and how creative they were. And I just built this little literally I still have it. I wrote this little chart, mindset chart for me. And I was like, how the hell do I show up more brilliantly every day? And I think that was the call to adventure for this company.
When that's awesome, by the way, and trying to see that pattern, what would you recommend to other leaders right now? Do you recommend starting writing down that pattern, or is it, hey, you need to, get out of whatever funk, or, stop doom scrolling? What do you recommend there?
I mean, are we talking about behavioral techniques to show up more consistently in flow? Or are you talking about
I loved what you've went over with me before, and being able to be in some of that flow state.
Yeah, I mean, step one is awareness. So that was me showing a level of awareness. Most people don't even recognize that there are times when they're great and times when they're bad. Like, most people don't have that awareness. They're just stuck in their head most of the time, kind of mindlessly going through the routines. So the first step is become aware. Why did I perform so good yesterday? I'm not performing so good today. Or noticing, there's a difference in the way I'm showing up for my team. There's a difference in the way I'm showing up for my partner. Just becoming aware that there's fluctuation in your ability to show up. I think that's step one. And what you're ultimately doing is building a awareness of the state you're in. And that state, there's really 4 primary states. You have, I guess you call it 5. If you think of them as like a chart or a graph, you got on the y-axis, you got activation. So like a high heart rate, normally associated with adrenaline or noradrenaline. And then on the bottom of that y-axis, on the other side, you got a low heart rate, typically associated with acetylcholine, slows the heart down. And then on the x-axis, on one side, positive emotional tone. You think of that as like the neurotransmitters like dopamine and serotonin, ETDA, the precursor to testosterone, and estrogen. And on the right side, the other side, negative emotional tonality, typically associated with like stress hormones like cortisol. And then you got quadrants there. So you take high heart rate, negative emotional tone. That's the flight response. Run away from an attacking predator. Adaptive in the jungle, not so adaptive as a founder in a leadership meeting. The brain is going to be reflexively firing off automatic negative thoughts, NATs, negative automatic thoughts that are, get me out of this. I hate this. I'm not supposed to be doing this. Trying to sell a big deal, it's giving you lack of confidence. Freeze response is there. So go down, low heart rate, also negative emotional tonality, stress hormones, freeze response, play dead response, lowers your IQ like 20-ish points. Still both burn a ton of energy, but that's when people get at a loss for words. So you're in an executive meeting, you're trying to lead, you're stumbling on your words. You're dealing with a freeze response, blood flowing out of your brain to your hands to run away, or in this case, to just play dead. Your whole nervous system is being hijacked. Yeah. a polar bear walks through the door, you're going to go into a fetal position. You won't even recognize that you're doing it. It'll be reflexive. It's like it's a hijack of the nervous system. So those are all spectrums. Mm-hmm. You can have a light freeze response. That's procrastination. Full freeze response. That's bear is walking up to you. So those are the two really most maladaptive ones. So if we go high heart rate, more positive emotional tonality. So high heart rate means it's a sympathetic response in the nervous system, but positive emotional tonality. So probably like dopamine and noradrenaline. Dopamine, molecule of motivation, noradrenaline, molecule of effort. That's going to be, you're motivated. It's a fight response. So fights typically characterized as bad. They say fight or flight response, but a boxer's in a fight response, and so is a CEO who's giving an impassioned speech about the future of their company, trying to rally the troops to go do something hard. Also a fight response. So that's more adaptive. You don't want to be there all the time. Lower heart rate, positive emotional tonality. We call that focus. Also called rest and digest. It's a nice flowy state where you can, lose track of time, work in a spreadsheet until day's done, not notice. And then if you think about right in the middle of that, so at where the lines cross, you think of that as being centered or zeroed out, or in the word we use is equanimity. In equanimity, at the center there, you have the highest level of agency. So you're not predisposed to motivation. You're not predisposed to running away or freezing or focusing. You actually have the choice to make there. Do I need to stop and maybe reconsider this decision? Do I need to just pause right now? Do I need to go take it? Do I need to focus a little bit more on it before doing anything or whatever? Like, you have true agency, right, in equanimity, which is why most mental performance coaches, predominantly the ones who work with athletes, teach their athletes to be in equanimity. A golfer walking up to a shot doesn't want to come in any emotional tone. They want to be just totally centered. They want to look at that shot as rationally and objectively as they can to make it the best shot that they could possibly do.
Kevin, I appreciate your balance of agency and leveraging what choice do I need to make? Because I know a lot of meetings that I've sat in, you either have the people that expect you to be highly emotional or the people that expect you to be very stoic. And I appreciate kind of the being in the middle is really where we want to be. We have access to having some more emotions, access to staying less emotional and more calm. I have quite the emotional spectrum. Travis can attest to this. And I've sat in lots of meetings and felt that tension. So thank you for affirming both sides of that equation, or quadrants, I suppose.
Yeah.
I'm curious on your best advice for those who are training ahead of time for the quote unquote fight. I love that you are also allowing us to parallel a sales meeting or a board meeting to a boxing match, because sometimes it feels like that after we're done. Thank you for that. So we're training, we're ready to go. But I remember I was thrown into a meeting once, and Travis and I were working together here. There was some miscommunication from the executive leadership that could not be part of this meeting. And I had to represent way beyond my title or my pay. And I had to go stand in front of some really important people that ended up being very angry at us. And I was probably underprepared, but I was certainly caught off guard. For the people that are going to step into moments where they thought they were prepared and then they were caught off guard, what do we do in those exact moments to try to find that center? Do we pause? Do we breathe? Do we think? Yeah. What is your recommendation?
Great question. That those situations happen all the time. The quadrants, again, though, is just a way for me to help you understand that, or your listeners understand that having the awareness to know what physiological state you're in is the groundwork for then learning how to shift. Maybe you don't want to be in freeze. You want to be in fight, or you want to be in focus. And there's a lot of tools to shift. But step one is recognize you're in a flight response. So what you're outlining there, going into a situation that you weren't prepared for or expecting, that normally is a recipe for a flight response or a freeze response. So the question you're really asking is, how do I not go into a flight response or a freeze response when I'm hit with something that was unexpected and potentially perceived by the unconscious and subconscious mind as a threat? So the thing that causes us to go into a flight response or a freeze response is holding our breath, typically. That will initiate one of these maladaptive responses. So you see kind of, I don't know, like Popeye or whatever, like you see like they hold their breath, their face goes red, they clench their fists, blood's flowing out their fists. They're like getting ready for battle, or running away or fighting or whatever. Like if you want to stay centered and in equanimity, the first thing you want to reflexively do when encountering a situation that actually isn't a threat to you physically, but maybe could be challenging, is make sure to take a nice breath. Keep breathing. Do not hold. Secondarily, relax the stomach. So the vagus nerve is down there, which is adaptive with the parasympathetic nervous system. So helps us stay in that nice relaxed state, low heart rate. So relax your stomach, breathe. And then if you want to, so you're working on the physiological and emotional levels. And if you want to work on the cognitive levels, so you think about it as your emotions, your feelings, your physiology, your thoughts. We call this the performance chain. They all affect each other. But you want to work on the cognitive element too. Travis probably remembered this from back in the day. If you really want to keep your wits about you and you want to figure out a reason why this thing that maybe is negative is actually a good thing for you in the business, which is everything, every challenge is an opportunity. You can say a cognitive reframe to yourself, something like best thing that could have happened. And that little phrase right there will be picked up by the subconscious, which just believes anything you tell it. And it will go, oh, well, why I need to fulfill this. Like it's like an LLM request. It's like, why is this the best thing that could have happened, ChatGPT? And it will start to try and figure out reasons why. Like I use this a lot. I don't get pulled over much anymore as I drive a big SUV. But when I used to drive around in fast cars, you get pulled over. I just use that reframe all the time. I get pulled over. I'd be like, best thing it could have happened. I'd see like the cherries and berries in the rearview mirror. Best thing it could have happened, And I'd relax my stomach, and the officer would come walking up, and I'd be like, super nice, accommodating, comfortable, honest about what was going on. And I would normally get a warning because I think probably I was the most settled person they'd talk to all day. Contrast that to when I was a kid. I used to build race cars at IU, and I had like a muscle car or whatever that was overpowered, and I drove like a psychopath everywhere. And I got pulled over, and I was in my math class or whatever learning about cosine error or something, and I was like, where did you clock me from with your radar gun? At what angle? And like, he was just like, get the F out of here, kid. And then I actually went to court and tried to defend myself with that stupid thing. And the judge was like, pay your fine. But, it's like, I wish I had known that when I was a kid.
I love that. I now know how I should talk to the officer that pulls me over. I need to give that reflection to my children as well. They're getting ready to get their license. So
and I'm not saying that's the right thing for everyone. I've got myself in trouble with that example before. Not everybody's comfortable getting pulled over, nor should they be. But yeah.
Well, I love that. So, okay, I'm really wanting to dive in a little bit deeper here for what you've got in store for Dreamfuel. And I know this is a little bit off script, but I'm really curious, Kevin, what right now with the new changes or even the new information that you've been training and learning, what's really exciting you right now as you're launching? You have been launching Dreamfuel for a while, but when working with people, what is it that's really you're really passionate about currently?
Yeah, I mean, my primary mission, I guess, is an evangelist for our category, and it's been hard rowing for maybe the first decade working on this category. Because like I said, in sports, special forces, celebrities, they all understand that the mind is the most important thing to focus on if you want to be an elite performer. When everybody else has physicality figured out, it's going to be the mindset that's going to be the thing that puts you over the top. Tom Brady has preached that. He wrote a book about it. So it's like well understood there. And yeah, when I started trying to sell this stuff, they're like, "Oh, so you're a mental health coach?" I'm like, "Not really. I'm not trying to make you feel okay. Like, I mean, that's a byproduct of what we do. I'm trying to make sure you hit your goal. I'm trying to make sure you exit your company without destroying your family. I'm trying to make sure that you maximize that outcome." And early adopters like in town, David Durham, Green Light Guru, Max Yoder of Lessonly, Santiago, Amplify, and their teams, started to kind of wrap their heads around this, but I had to like really convince them. And the beautiful thing I'm seeing now is maybe it's the combination of like the existential dread of AI taking people's jobs, plus the speed at which people are having to execute, plus like now teams are getting tight and they're like, each person is expected to do a lot more with these tools. Stress levels are at a point now, I think, where people are realizing what I realized my first startup, which is like they're not effective staring at a computer screen all day. They got to be in super flow state. They got to be mad productive. And so there's like a whole watershed thing happening right now where kind of like tipping point where, the early adopters talk to the misers, and then the misers talk to the connectors, and the connectors then start really spreading it. And there's been some amazing people who I consider to be connectors who are really starting to talk about this now. And since we've been the ones tooting the horn the loudest, at least in our space in tech, or at least one of I'm not even aware of many others that are doing this, we're at the center of that conversation. So it's a nice like watershed event happening right now this year. Just the 10 years of grinding, and I think it's our time's only coming, which is really nice.
You mentioned grinding, and most founders believe that is the greatest virtue for sure. They're building up things. And certainly there is power behind willingness to continue to do hard things and chase a goal. That's good. But I have a kind of my last question here. I'm always interested in the edit, what you can remove from something in order to focus better on something else. For founders who maybe just hit their first million, they're seeing good traction, or maybe even an executive that finally got that big CEO job that they've been wanting for a long time. What would you say is the best way to look at their job and their life and then remove something as they focus on something else? Like, what's the thing they need to stop doing in order to focus on what they should?
Stop looking at your phone after 7 p.m. You're going to remove one thing that's going to help your mental capacity and your ability to perform, and then have a consistent bedtime and wake time, like a child.
That's pretty simple and really practical. Do you have like any apps or anything like that, especially to like help it shut off, or you're just that dedicated?
Or you just got to be disciplined about it,
Yeah.
No, if you look at your physiology, which is all just peptides and chemicals that influence the way you show up, you do need to get devices down at a decent hour in the evening, because these burn tons of dopamine. Also, blue light affects our circadian rhythm, so it's kind of a double whammy. It's things like doom scrolling. Doom scrolling runs enough dopamine that you're actually reducing your capability to show up well in the next meeting. I mean, like if you sit there doom scrolling between meetings, like you're burning up dopamine that you won't have. And dopamine converts to noradrenaline. So it's like your effort molecule, your motivation molecule is just being depleted by doom scrolling. So it's like you do that before bed. It's dumb. You need to be allowing your body to renew those resources. So build more dopamine, store them in the vesicles of your neurons so that they can be fired later. And then a lot of people don't recognize this. Also, if you have your bedtime swings more than 15 minutes, you're giving yourself like basically micro jet lag. And if you're going totally random sleep and bedtime, your whole body's like this nice organized machine, this mechanism that runs on cycles. So if your bedtime's always all over the place, you're just giving yourself jet lag all the time. If you have like a dialed in bedtime and a dialed in wake time, then your whole body, like a symphony, can like just orchestrate itself around when it needs to release melatonin to help you go to bed, when it needs to release a little bit of cortisol to wake you up. Otherwise, you're dumping those peptides and then having to like rebuild them. It's like when you don't go to sleep on time, you dump some melatonin. Oh, nope, I'm not going to go to bed. And then it's like, okay, so we'll run like a little bit of adrenaline to keep you up or some cortisol, and then we'll remanufacture some melatonin, we'll dump it again. It's like, that's jet lag is just your body gets overwhelmed trying to create chemicals.
Wow. I'm learning so much right now. I've taken down so many notes and I can't wait to re-listen to this. This is going to be awesome. So closing thoughts here, Kevin, is, we always kind of end it with, what is something fun you love to do over the weekend? And love to hear kind of how you rejuvenate.
Yeah. My weekends, I got 4 kids, so they are intensely just saturated with kid activities. I guess I'm built my company around this and am privileged enough that I just take Mondays off every week and make that a serotonin focused day where I just do things I enjoy that aren't really goal oriented, just kind of very relaxing. I do a lot of meditation, take a nice run in a park, whatever, like eat Chipotle in the sun, listening to my favorite music for a few hours. I do that on Mondays. My wife does that on Sundays. So I'm a big believer in, you don't need like vacations all the time, or, you don't need these big vacations to look forward to. If you have one day every week or two that you can look forward to as being just a day to be like a kid. So I do that in concert with my wife, and I just kind of built my life around that a little bit.
I'll be honest, I caught myself holding my breath during parts of this one. Your mind is where every result starts and deserves training, not neglect. Keep breathing, protect your sleep, and treat your inner game the way professionals do. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Dataliction Podcast. Kevin taught us to manage the noise inside of our head. Now, think about the noise inside of your business. 7 browser tabs, 4 logins, numbers that don't match, and a big decision due by Friday. That kind of chaos is not a focus problem. It's a systems problem. And that's exactly what our team at Dataliction solves. We create your own all-in-one platform made for the way you actually work rather than stuffed with features for everyone everywhere. So the full picture sits in one place when you need it, often for less cost than all those tangled up tools that, what they cost you now. So go over to dataliction.com, grab a free call with our team, and see what options may surprise you.